Hi everyone, this is Phil Travis, and this announcement is for week 2 of the 60s. This week we'll be reading chapter 2 from our main textbook, The Age of Great Dreams. If you don't yet have the book, if you're not going to get it this week, please do tell me as soon as possible. I will scan the chapter in for you. I can't do that all term. This will be the last week I can do this, otherwise I get in trouble. So if you need the reading and you don't have it yet, I can do that this week. Just please let me know. We're reading chapter 2 from Farber, Age of Great Dreams. It's not a long chapter, and we are dealing with John F. Kennedy, his election, and particularly the foreign policy crises of his presidency. I also have my own recorded lecture up for you. It's kind of long, and that's because my specialty is U.S. foreign relations in the Cold War. So even though my own work, my publishing, like my book, and I have some articles published, relate to the 1970s and 80s, particularly the 80s, with respect to Central America, I am still very interested in the Cold War, and U.S. international relations during the Cold War is really my specialization. So my point, the recorded lecture this week is a little long, but I think you'll find it very, very helpful. It goes into depth that the text actually does not go into. So hopefully everybody will watch that recorded lecture. Even if you don't have the book, reading that or watching that recorded lecture is a great way to start during the week, getting an understanding of the subject, and will really enhance what we are reading and what we're doing in the discussion forum. So I hope everybody watches the recorded lecture. It's a little long, maybe 50 minutes. It's probably the longest one I'll ever do. I'll try to make them a little bit shorter in the future, but I got carried away because I am interested in this subject very much. And it's a very complex subject as well. There's a lot of interesting dynamics to it. So it's on John F. Kennedy's crises in foreign policy during his presidency from 1961 till, of course, his tragic assassination on November 22nd, 1963. We also have a quiz this week, and the quiz is based off of the reading from The Age of Great Dreams, Chapter 2. I tried to select those questions. There's 10 questions. It's got a 30-minute time limit. They're multiple choice true-false questions, and I intentionally tried to select them in a manner in which they occur. They go chronologically as they appear in the text. So question 1 appears first in the text, and the last question more or less appears last in the text. So I tried to make it so it goes sort of linearly with your reading. Hopefully that'll make it a little bit easier. I just want to make sure you're reading and getting an understanding of these important details for this class. So quiz this week, discussion as usual. Remember, the goal for the discussion, I want to see 1 post, 2 replies, starting Thursday and occurring over 2 separate days. If Thursday comes around and you're like, I don't know, I'm not ready to post yet, you don't have to blow us all away with an amazing post out of the gate if you're not there yet. But you can still get in there and make a reply and participate in the discussion and do the best you can so that you get that, you don't lose that point for not starting on Thursday. A post or reply, just as long as you start on Thursday, make sure you have 1 post, 2 replies over the course of the weeks and start Thursday with it over 2 separate days. So make a post or a reply on Thursday, come back in on Saturday, see what the conversations are, or Friday or whatever, any other day. Or you can do it all during the week before Friday if you want. Okay, so that's about it. So in this class, we are going to start a very fun extra credit activity. And the extra credit activity is super easy, and you get free points for watching these announcements. This is how it works. Every week I do an announcement like this. In the announcement, each week, I'm going to talk about a factoid. All you have to do is email me the factoid no later than Wednesday by midnight, demonstrating that you've watched the announcements before Wednesday or the end of the day Wednesday. And then I take the factoid that you sent to me, and I put it in a special folder in my email, and at the end of the term, I count up the factoids I give you 1 point for each factoid. I count them all together. By the end of the term, you could have as many as 10 points, potentially, in factoid extra credit points. And I add that then to a test score at the end of the term. So if you had a 70 on a test, your test would go up to an 80 to a 90, or 85 to 95. It's pretty significant. If you do them all, it will be 3%, roughly, 3 percentage points on your final grade, roughly. So it's a really nice way to bonus your grade. Oftentimes, the difference between an 87, a B, and a 90, an A, or a 77 and an 80, a B. So it can be a big difference in your grade. So I will give you a factoid, and then all you have to do is email me by no later than Wednesday by midnight to get that bonus point for each week. So here's the factoid for this week. We're talking about the crises of Kennedy. And we're talking about the period of time from 1961 to 1963 when John F. Kennedy was president, and some of the crises that emerged. The Vietnam conflict, for the United States at least, began to become increasingly hostile, increasingly dangerous. The United States began committing advisors. Upwards of 16,000 advisors were sent to Vietnam during the presidency of John F. Kennedy. The United States was also involved in certain activities in Laos, which had a similar anti-communist, communist insurgency going on. We were struggling against communism in the region. The reason the United States was committing to Vietnam was because of its attempt to prevent communism from overrunning South Vietnam. There was a similar pro-communist movement in Laos at the time. The United States, during Eisenhower's presidency in 1959, had witnessed the overthrow in Cuba of the American-supported dictatorship and the rise of Fidel Castro in 1959. And of course, this led to the Eisenhower-planned attempt to overthrow Castro, the so-called Bay of Pigs, which was planned during the Eisenhower presidency but carried out at the beginning of John F. Kennedy's presidency. And of course, the Soviet Union recognizes Castro's regime, and in 1962 began placing ballistic nuclear weapons, ballistic missiles, nuclear missiles, and missiles capable of having a nuclear warhead put on them in Cuba in 1962. Here's the factoid. There's a number of other crises. We'll be talking about them in discussion this week. The Berlin Wall, for example, in addition to Vietnam, in addition to the Bay of Pigs, in addition to the Cuban Missile Crisis. The factoid is this. The way that the United States found out that the Soviet Union had placed missiles capable of firing a nuclear warhead at the United States in Cuba, the way we found out that the Soviet Union, the way the United States found out that the Soviet Union had put those missiles there, was through an advanced high-tech spy aircraft known as the U-2. And the U-2 was a revolutionary aircraft. This was before satellites had really revolutionized surveillance. Instead, if you wanted to fly over the airspace of another country and take images, you had to build a plane that would fly over that country. And the United States, of course, built the U-2, which could fly at altitudes upwards of 60,000 feet, had advanced for the time cameras that could take pictures. And that U-2 took pictures on the island of Cuba of the containers and the missile installations that were being built there. That's how the United States learned of this development. Here's the specific factoid. Area 51. As of the late 80s, early 90s, Area 51 became the synonymous thing associated usually with conspiracy theories about UFOs and aliens and so forth. Area 51, it's almost become like a pop culture phenomenon in certain avenues of American society. Area 51 is ultimately the name that was given to the Air Force test site, the U.S. government test site, that the U-2 was tested at. It's in Nevada, and the U-2, this advanced plane, was actually tested there. And typically, scholars will suggest that the reason that Area 51 became associated with the UFO craze is because people saw experimental aircraft flying above and around the area of Area 51 and mistook those for alien aircraft or something like this. In reality, it was a high-tech, advanced aircraft test site, and it's actually the place where the U-2, possibly the most advanced aircraft of any at the time, was developed, and ultimately the U-2 revolutionized the United States' ability to surveil its enemies and made it possible for the United States to understand exactly what was happening in Cuba in 1962. So the U-2 tested at the testing site in Nevada, ultimately known as Area 51. Let's have a great week, everyone.